Hey guys, Arue here. So I just watched the new season of Sweet Home and it was terrible. On the get-go, I didn't really like the first season, especially how it ended because it was quite different from the source material. I don't really mind if there are major changes on the live action adaptation. There are a lot of examples for this. The Boys had a lot of changes compared to its source material. There were gender swaps, change in races, and a lot of characters were added, and it helped the series build up its momentum. Another example being the new Scott Pilgrim takes off. Compared to its predecessor, the comic and the movie, instead of Scott, we see Ramona's backstory and they build it up in the end. And for Sweet Home, I was a big fan of the webtoon and I believe that the world building, the characters, its development, and the end really paid off. The main cast was interesting and the motivation of the main protagonist, Yoon, was quite compelling in the end. So all they had to do was copy the main source material in order to make this series great. Yet I can't believe how the director fucked this series up. While I was watching season 2, there were times that it felt like they were doing this on purpose because everything was just dragging on and the pacing was utter dog shit. It didn't really live up to its source material, especially from the writing standpoint because the plot was a clusterfuck. And one first thing that people may notice is on season 1 there were a lot of minor changes, and I want to call out that the change of romantic interest of Yoon was still a minor part of the story, because as to me, the characters in the webtoon wasn't interesting because of their romance but more of their personalities and their main motivator to survive. So for the Netflix adaptation, Lee Hyun became the romantic interest of the main character, and I didn't really care from the start. Even in the webtoon, there were a lot of conflicts for the group, but the story ended with them having a strong bond and have a lot of camaraderie with each other. And even with the webtoon being finished for quite a while, I still remember this. But when you compare this relationship dynamic with the Netflix adaptation, even if just binging season 1 and 2 in just a week, I can't remember the characters. They were very generic and it didn't help with season 2 having more uninteresting characters. So in the first place, the director had a terrible vision towards this show, which surprised me because from my research, the director actually made Goblin. I didn't watch this K-drama, but as far as I know, a lot of people were actually satisfied by that series and it had a lot of positive reviews. So the webtoon Sweet Home was already great. Yes, the premise was small scale. If people aren't aware, the webtoon mostly took place just on the apartment and the plot mainly revolved around inside that apartment or that building, which is vastly significant to the Netflix adaptation. Even with that, you can really feel that they were on the edge and they were surviving barely. For this video, I want to primarily talk about the main cast. So first thing is Yoon. Hyun felt like a wasted character in the series because Hyun at the start was really messed up in the head and he had a lot of ongoing trauma, which a lot of side characters help him to move on and develop as a person. Both the Netflix adaptation and the webtoon showed this. That is why one of the main reasons Hyun was struggling to transform into a monster is because he lacked the desire to turn one. And due to his psyche, all throughout the series he was struggling with this, and we see him getting tempted by the monster on his head, and that monster felt like the main antagonist of the webtoon, which the adaptation didn't really do much, especially on season 2 because of Hyun's lack of screen time. Hyun rediscovering himself was heartwarming, and even if they just copy and pasted the dialogues on the webtoon or just develop it a bit, I believe it could be done well. But they segued through a lot of uninteresting characters, and that I don't understand because nobody really asked for that. The surprise for me on both seasons was Lee Yoon, the new romantic interest of Yoon. So on the first season, I think she did pretty great, but on season 2, she fell off as a character. It felt like every time she was on screen, all she was doing was just walking around trying to find Yoon. Even the character arc where she was trying to find this brother, which they weren't sure if he was clearly dead or was just missing. The whole premise of that on season 2 was just going on, and it didn't really pay off at the end because a closure didn't really happen or an indicator that he was really dead. And I don't know where they were going with this. It felt like they just scratched that part of the story off. Next is probably the main antagonist of the series. I'm not that sure yet, but we'll see on season 3, I guess. So I'm talking about Lee Jin-wook. This guy, the gangster, was possessed by the main antagonist at the end of season 1, and he was the one discouraging the main protagonist to not surrender himself themselves to the authority because I guess military bad and they were like the anti-hero of the story. And after a few episodes, they still end up being an experiment. So what was the point of the episodes that Hyun and Lee Jin-wook was hiding? Furthermore, his character didn't really develop because the character didn't really put much of an emphasis towards the two characters. And for something that I liked was Young. For me, their dynamic was interesting. The pacing fucked it up because of the main scene of the series, which is the new side characters. To me, the new side characters were terrible. All of them were uninteresting. I guess if I want to talk about the least worst one, it could be the military guy with the scar on his face, but I can't even remember their names and they were all fillers. So season 2 lacked a lot of substance through the story. The characters were talking and exploring the stadium or the abandoned stadium, but I couldn't really see where the story was going. Season 2 felt so empty and it is quite obvious that this is just a setup for season 3. If you wanna watch a similar story with Sweet Home, then just watch The Last of Us. I know you won't see your Korean idol stan, but the writing there is much better. The characters are more interesting. The monsters on Sweet Home always felt to me like they were just the foundation of the story. And this is quite similar to The Last of Us. But one thing that Sweet Home didn't really execute pretty well was how they developed the characters. And lastly, from all the horror survival stories that I watched and read, it was always mainly focused on the characters and their drama. The terrible retelling of Sweet Home by enlarging the scale, making a focus on action, was terrible for me. I know some people might find this entertaining, but it didn't really live up to its source material. In the end, I will still watch season 3, but I don't really have much of an expectation that it would improve for the better. I do hope they don't adapt the prequel Shotgun Boy because I don't really want to see it get butchered again. Anyways, if you like the adaptation of Sweet Home, then good on you. But to me, it was terrible and I feel like I just wasted 8 hours of my time. That's it for today and thank you for watching. See ya.